9-year-old Melodee Buzzard's disappearance has raised deep concern as investigators work to retrace the final, confirmed days she spent with her mother. Melodee was last seen on October 9th during a multi-state road trip, captured on surveillance wearing a wig beside her mother at a rental car facility in Lompoc. When a school administrator reported her prolonged absence, deputies found no clear explanation for where the child had gone. As the investigation expanded, troubling details emerged. Detectives confirmed that Melodee and her mother traveled through several states, including Utah, Colorado, Kansas, and Nebraska. Surveillance footage showed both wearing wigs, and the rental car's license plate was switched from California to New York before being changed back. Authorities say these deliberate steps appear intended to avoid recognition, heightening fears surrounding Melodee's safety and whereabouts. Complicating matters further, Ashlee Buzzard has remained uncooperative with investigators. She has not confirmed Melodee's location or condition despite active search warrants executed at her home, a storage unit, and the rental vehicle. The sheriff's office stresses the need for probable cause before filing charges, reflecting other high-profile cases where parents were initially untouched as investigators collected critical evidence in ongoing missing children cases. In a parallel development, Ashlee faced a felony false imprisonment charge in a separate incident, but the case was dismissed after testimony raised doubts about the accuser's credibility. With monitoring removed, Ashlee remains free while the central question persists: where is Melodee? As the sheriff's office and FBI release new images and request footage along the travel route, investigators hope someone will provide the lead needed to bring Melodee home safely. On October 7th, Melodee and her mother, Ashlee Buzzard, arrived at a rental car facility in Lompoc, California. Surveillance cameras captured the pair entering the location wearing wigs, a detail investigators later described as unusual and concerning. The footage marks one of the final clear and confirmed sightings of Melodee before the cross-state journey that would raise national alarm. The mother rented a white 2024 Chevrolet Malibu, originally carrying a California license plate. Detectives noted that this initial moment, Melodee appearing disguised alongside her mother, became a central point in reconstructing the critical movements during the trip. It suggested an intentional effort to mask their identities even before they left town. After leaving Lompoc, the pair began traveling east, eventually covering more than 1,000 miles across multiple states. Their route included Utah, Colorado, Kansas, and extended as far as Nebraska. Investigators believe the journey was rapid, covering this distance between October 7th and October 9th, with Melodee's last confirmed appearance captured on video at the Colorado-Utah border. The surveillance clip showing Melodee near that border became one of the most significant pieces of evidence. It established that she was still alive and traveling with her mother on October 9th, but after that moment, the trail of clear sightings abruptly ends. No additional confirmed footage of Melodee exists from the return journey despite the extensive mileage. Authorities say the white Malibu experienced a suspicious change mid-trip. The California license plate was removed and replaced with a New York plate. This discovery was made after investigators retrieved surveillance and cross-checked the plates. The sheriff's office described the alteration as an apparent attempt to avoid detection or tracking. Even more concerning, when the rental car was returned to the Lompoc agency, the original California plate had been reattached. This switchback raised questions about what occurred in the period between states and whether anyone else assisted or witnessed the changes. The sheriff's office has requested surveillance from gas stations, motels, and businesses along the entire route. Authorities also confirmed the Malibu traveled through Green River and Panguitch in Utah, as well as northwest Arizona, Primm in Nevada, and Rancho Cucamonga in California during the return leg. These areas form a large, complex search zone. Investigators hope public tips or video footage from October 9th to 10th will help verify whether Melodee was seen after the Colorado-Utah border footage. The investigation formally began on October 14th, triggered not by the mother but by a school administrator who noticed Melodee's prolonged absence. Deputies visited the Buzzard home but found Melodee missing and Ashlee unable to provide a clear explanation. This moment marked the beginning of what officials now call a critical and evolving investigation. During the initial welfare check, Ashlee did not report Melodee as missing, contributing to heightened suspicion and public concern. Authorities described her responses as vague and inconsistent. The sheriff's office stated that Ashlee has not confirmed Melodee's location or welfare, a phrase repeated in multiple updates to highlight the seriousness of her non-cooperation. As investigators pressed for answers, Ashlee continued to withhold key details. She declined to explain why disguises and plate changes were used and provided no timeline for when she last saw her daughter during the trip. This lack of clarity forced detectives to reconstruct the journey using digital records, video evidence, and witness interviews. Search warrants were issued for Ashlee's home, a storage locker connected to her, and the rental vehicle. Authorities have not publicly shared what, if anything, was recovered. They emphasize that certain findings cannot be released due to the active nature of the case, though they confirm no discovery has yet resolved Melodee's location. Family members told local media that they had lost contact with Ashlee and Melodee over recent years. Melodee's father died in a motorcycle crash when she was 6 months old, leaving her in the sole care of her mother. Relatives expressed shock at the disappearance and pleaded for information that could help locate the girl safely. The sheriff's office has published a detailed route map charting the mother and daughter's movements. This map has played an essential role in the public awareness campaign, encouraging residents and businesses across multiple states to review security footage. Investigators remain hopeful that even a small sighting could help narrow the timeline. The FBI later joined the investigation, offering additional resources and forensic support. Their involvement signals the complexity and potential severity of the case. Federal agents are assisting with digital evidence recovery, including phone records, GPS data, and any communications that could reveal Melodee's last known moments. Despite the layers of investigative pressure, authorities stress that a missing child case requires verified evidence before charges can be filed. Legal experts note parallels to past cases, such as Lori Vallow and Casey Anthony, where parents were initially uncharged or charged with unrelated offenses while investigators work to establish probable cause. Ashlee's refusal to cooperate remains a central obstacle. She has invoked her right to remain silent, complicating efforts to identify where the trip ended for Melodee. Even basic questions such as when mother and daughter separated remain unanswered. Officials describe the situation as deeply troubling and highly abnormal. The community has rallied to support the search, sharing Melodee's photo, physical description, and details of the road trip. Posters have been distributed across California, Utah, and Colorado. Multiple agencies have urged anyone with footage from October 7th to 10th to review it carefully for sightings of the Malibu or the pair. Melodee is described as 4 feet 6 inches tall, 60 pounds, with curly brown hair and brown eyes. She was last seen wearing a wig during the early stages of the trip. Investigators warn that her appearance may have changed during travel, either intentionally or through additional disguises similar to her mother's. Officials say the timeline from October 7th to October 10th is critical, as it represents the final period when Melodee was definitively known to be alive and with her mother. The absence of confirmed sightings after the Colorado-Utah border has driven the focus on that specific stretch of the route, where investigators believe key moments may have occurred. As Part 1 closes, the timeline of the disappearance establishes a chilling and unresolved mystery. Despite surveillance images, digital data, and a multi-state search effort, no evidence conclusively shows where Melodee went after October 9th. The unanswered distance between that final sighting and Ashlee's solo return home forms the core of the investigation. As investigators pressed deeper into the timeline, Ashlee Buzzard's behavior became one of the most scrutinized aspects of the case. Her unwillingness to provide even basic details about Melodee's safety added urgency and frustration to the search. Officials stated that Ashlee offered no explanation for the disguises, the altered license plates, or the route they traveled, leaving authorities to rely solely on digital evidence. Detectives described multiple attempts to interview Ashlee, but each effort was met with silence or vague answers. She repeatedly invoked her right to avoid self-incrimination, providing little information that could help locate her daughter. While legally protected, her stance left investigators with a widening gap of unanswered questions about what occurred between October 7th and October 10th. Law enforcement officials emphasized that despite public suspicion, they cannot make an arrest in Melodee's disappearance without probable cause. They noted that missing child investigations often require extensive evidence gathering before any charges can be filed. This cautious approach ensures that cases remain strong in court, especially when dealing with potentially serious crimes. The complexities surrounding Ashlee's behavior reminded many legal observers of past high-profile cases, including the disappearance of JJ and Tyler in the Lori Vallow Daybell case and the early stages of the Casey Anthony investigation. In each instance, parents were initially charged with unrelated or lesser offenses while detectives worked behind the scenes to gather concrete evidence. In the midst of the search for Melodee, Ashlee found herself facing a separate felony false imprisonment charge. The accusation originated from an incident involving a man named Tyler Brewer, who claimed she threatened him with a box cutter and prevented him from leaving her home. His testimony quickly became part of the public conversation surrounding Ashlee's behavior. Brewer testified that he had reached out to Ashlee after presenting himself as a legal professional, using formal letterhead to initiate contact. He claimed he was attempting to offer assistance related to Melodee's case. According to his statements, he visited Ashlee's home several times between November 1st and November 6th before the alleged confrontation took place. However, under cross-examination, Brewer's credibility was brought into question. The defense pressed him about his dual communication with Ashlee and the sheriff's office, suggesting he was speaking to both sides while portraying himself as a trusted confidant. These contradictions weakened the foundation of the prosecution's claims. The court found that Brewer's testimony lacked reliability, and without strong supporting evidence, the judge dismissed the false imprisonment charge. This decision removed Ashlee from electronic monitoring and temporarily shifted public focus back to the central issue: Melodee's disappearance and Ashlee's continued refusal to clarify her daughter's welfare. Legal experts noted that Brewer's unreliable testimony served as an important reminder of why careful evidentiary standards matter. Even in cases heightened by public emotion, charges cannot advance without solid proof. The dismissal also meant investigators had fewer legal tools available to restrict Ashlee's movement while they continued their search. Despite the dismissal, law enforcement emphasized that the investigation into Melodee's disappearance remains entirely separate. They stressed that the dropped case neither clears Ashlee nor implicates her further, rather, it simply removes a legally unsupported charge. The focus remains firmly on determining the child's whereabouts and well-being. As news of the dismissal reached the public, many hoped it would encourage Ashlee to speak openly about Melodee's last known moments. However, investigators stated that her level of cooperation did not change. She continued to decline interviews, leaving officials reliant on surveillance, forensic evidence, and public tips. Police confirmed that they had served search warrants at Ashlee's home in Lompoc, a storage locker believed to be linked to her, and the rented Malibu. While details of what was recovered remain sealed, authorities stated that nothing released publicly has pointed to Melodee's location. Any evidence found is still being analyzed. The involvement of the FBI became crucial during this phase. Federal investigators provided digital forensic support, tracking cell tower data, communication records, and potential digital footprints that may have been left during the multi-state trip. Their expertise is particularly valuable in cases where location data may reveal hidden movements. Authorities emphasized that obtaining cooperation from surrounding states has been essential. Agencies in Utah, Colorado, Kansas, and Nebraska have reviewed their own databases and surveillance archives. The widespread route has required coordination across dozens of jurisdictions, each following up on sightings, tips, and video submissions. The sheriff's office also shared newly released surveillance images of Ashlee and Melodee from October 7th. The photos showed both standing at the rental counter wearing wigs, a detail that remains one of the strongest indicators of premeditated concealment. Investigators described these images as critical to understanding the mindset behind the trip. Officials asked businesses along the route, particularly gas stations, convenience stores, and roadside motels, to review footage from October 9th and 10th. These locations are often equipped with exterior cameras that capture passing vehicles. Detectives hope that somewhere along the route, someone may have captured a brief but crucial view of the Malibu. At community meetings, the sheriff's office reiterated that they still do not know whether Melodee is alive. Without confirmation from Ashlee and without clear video evidence after October 9th, the investigation remains open-ended. This uncertainty has emotionally strained many local residents who have followed the case closely. The sheriff's office spokesperson noted that cases like this require time, patience, and thoroughness. They stressed that public speculation cannot substitute factual evidence, and investigators must follow concrete leads rather than assumptions. Every piece of information must be verified before being folded into the timeline. Despite these challenges, authorities maintain that the case is active and progressing. Each day brings new reviews of digital data, new cross-state communications, and additional surveillance requests. Though frustratingly slow for the public, this methodical approach ensures that any eventual findings will stand up to legal scrutiny. As Part 2 concludes, the investigation's focus remains caught between two realities: a mother who has been largely uncooperative, and a child whose last confirmed sighting grows increasingly distant. With Ashlee offering no answers and no new sightings emerging, detectives continue pursuing every lead in hopes of uncovering what truly happened during that fateful road trip. Investigators continued to enhance and reanalyze every piece of surveillance footage available from the early stages of the road trip. Each frame was reviewed for possible clues, including changes in clothing, altered appearances, or signs of stress. Analysts looked closely at the wigs worn by Ashlee and Melodee, hoping subtle differences might indicate when and where the disguises were switched during the journey. Detectives noted that Ashlee appeared to rotate between different wigs throughout the trip, matching descriptions consistent with attempts to avoid recognition. Melodee's wig also shifted in style, raising the possibility that Ashlee changed her daughter's appearance multiple times. These actions suggested a deliberate strategy to obscure Melodee's identity at each stop. To expand the search, investigators sent formal evidence requests to businesses along the identified route. Many rural areas relied on older camera systems, requiring manual retrieval of footage. Deputies visited several locations in person, including small gas stations and remote convenience stores, to ensure that no archive was overlooked. A major challenge came from the limited time frames stored by many surveillance systems. Some cameras automatically overwrite files after a few days. Because the disappearance was not reported until October 14th, many cameras from October 9th and 10th had already purged their recordings. This narrowed the universe of potential video evidence significantly. Still, investigators managed to gather a series of partial glimpses of the Malibu traveling through isolated stretches of Utah and Arizona. Though the footage could not confirm whether Melodee was inside, the sightings helped verify the route and timing. Each verified timestamp helped investigators narrow down the locations where Melodee could have been last seen. Digital evidence teams also combed through cell tower records to track pings from Ashlee's phone. These data points helped outline the car's movements with greater precision. Analysts compared tower hits with the rental vehicle's mileage and timestamps, looking for inconsistencies that might suggest stops not captured on video. Authorities noted that Ashlee's phone was active throughout parts of the trip. However, Melodee's digital footprint was nearly non-existent, as she did not have a personal device. This made establishing her presence more challenging, forcing investigators to rely heavily on physical sightings and video evidence instead of digital location markers. Investigators expanded their requests to include rest stops, national park areas, and roadside attractions, hoping travelers may have inadvertently captured images of the mother and daughter. Dashcam footage from truck drivers became an unexpected source of potential leads, though reviewing such content was time-consuming. The sheriff's office formed a multi-agency working group to consolidate incoming information. Each tip, no matter how small, was logged, analyzed, and cross-referenced with time and location. Many tips turned out to be unrelated sightings, but investigators emphasized that even false leads helped narrow the search zone. Authorities also requested assistance from states along the return route, with Arizona and Nevada offering aerial reconnaissance support in remote areas. Helicopters equipped with thermal imaging were dispatched to regions around Prim and the Nevada border, searching for signs of disturbed ground or abandoned belongings. Meanwhile, forensic specialists continued examining the rental vehicle. They searched for fingerprints, fibers, hair strands, or any trace evidence that could indicate Melodee's condition during the trip. Bags, clothing, and personal items inside the car were cataloged and tested for biological material, though no findings have been publicly disclosed. Investigators confirmed that the Malibu showed no signs of forced entry or visible damage. However, they emphasized that the absence of trauma markers does not eliminate concerning possibilities. They also assessed whether any interior cleaning appeared unusually thorough or inconsistent with typical rental car use. Attention then turned to the storage locker linked to Ashlee. The warrant allowed investigators to examine the unit thoroughly, inventorying items that might relate to the road trip. Boxes, bags, and miscellaneous equipment were inspected, though officials have not released what, if anything, was recovered from the unit. Community involvement continued to grow as local residents organized volunteer search efforts. Flyers featuring Melodee's photo were distributed in multiple states, and social media groups dedicated to the case shared updates and potential sightings. Although many reports were unverified, each one was evaluated by investigators. Detectives held multiple press briefings to update the public, emphasizing the need for video from October 9th and 10th. They reminded residents that even a passing glimpse of the Malibu could help confirm Melodee's presence at a specific time. The public was urged not to speculate but to report concrete observations. Investigators monitored financial transactions linked to Ashlee during the trip. Purchases at gas stations, food stops, and supplies were reviewed to determine whether receipts aligned with the timeline. These details helped confirm where the pair stopped and whether any unexplained gaps appeared in the route. The sheriff's office also analyzed social media activity connected to Ashlee. Although she did not post during the trip, investigators reviewed older messages and contacts to identify any possible accomplices or individuals who may have been aware of her intentions before traveling. Authorities stressed that no solid evidence has emerged to confirm whether Melodee was harmed. The lack of both positive and negative indicators leaves the investigation in a fragile middle ground, where neither outcome can be ruled out. This uncertainty has shaped their careful, methodical strategy. The expanding scope of the search across multiple states, agencies, and types of evidence reflects the seriousness of the case. Detectives believe that somewhere within the vast amount of surveillance, digital data, and physical evidence lies a crucial piece that can clarify what happened during the return journey. Despite the complex investigative landscape, officials continue urging calm and patience. The focus remains on reconstruction, understanding every mile traveled, every stop made, and every moment captured. Each detail may hold a key insight into Melodee's last confirmed movements as the search prepares to shift into its next phase. Family members revealed they had not been in close contact with Ashlee or Melodee in recent years. After Melodee's father died in a motorcycle crash when she was only 6 months old, Ashlee became the child's sole caregiver. Relatives described the relationship as increasingly distant, making the disappearance even more alarming for those who had once been part of Melodee's early life. Relatives expressed shock when they learned from news reports that Melodee had vanished. Several family members publicly pleaded for Ashlee to come forward with the truth, emphasizing that her silence continued to harm the investigation. Their appeals reflected a growing sense of urgency, as critical days passed without any verified sighting of the child. Community members in Lompoc also expressed concern. Many remembered Melodee as a quiet, polite girl who attended local schools and participated in community events before the family's isolation. Residents placed ribbons, signs, and posters throughout the neighborhood, all urging the public to help find her. Local organizations and search groups offered assistance, coordinating volunteer-led efforts to distribute flyers and request footage from businesses. While official agencies handled the core investigation, volunteers helped raise awareness, ensuring Melodee's case reached audiences beyond California and into the broader national conversation. The online community amplified the case even further. Social media groups dedicated to missing children shared updates, timeline breakdowns, and discussions about the multi-state route. Although many posts lacked verified information, the collective attention helped sustain awareness while investigators pursued confirmed leads. The FBI's involvement added both expertise and pressure. Federal agents brought advanced analytic tools to process digital evidence at scale, including enhanced image reconstruction, geolocation patterning, and cross-database checks. Their presence indicated that investigators believed the case could involve complex interstate factors requiring federal jurisdiction. Despite online speculation, authorities clarified they have not identified any confirmed accomplices. While Ashlee's uncooperative stance frustrates investigators, officials stress that no one else has been named as a suspect. The investigation remains open to the possibility that others may possess information, even unknowingly. One of the most challenging aspects of the search is the lack of confirmed sightings after October 9th. The multi-state distance between that sighting and Ashlee's solo return home creates a broad timeline with numerous unverified segments. Each of these gaps requires systematic investigation, which demands time and coordination. Investigators also face the difficulty of analyzing remote regions with limited surveillance infrastructure. Some parts of the route include long stretches of unmonitored desert and rural terrain. These areas lack cameras, cellular coverage, or witnesses, creating blind spots that complicate the reconstruction of Melodee's movements. Authorities emphasize that the disguises worn by both mother and daughter added another layer of complexity. Wigs obscure facial recognition and make it harder for automated systems to identify individuals in surveillance footage. These tactics suggest planning and have forced investigators to rely on vehicle identification rather than physical appearance. The decision to change the rental car's license plate remains one of the most suspicious elements of the case. Officials stated that such an action is rarely accidental and typically indicates an attempt to conceal travel. The switch to a New York plate significantly widened the search area as investigators checked whether the plate was connected to any known individuals. While the public has questioned why authorities have not charged Ashlee, legal experts emphasize that suspicion alone is insufficient. To file charges related to Melodee's disappearance, investigators would need physical or testimonial evidence tying Ashlee to a specific crime. Without it, any premature arrest would risk legal challenges. Police remain cautious in releasing investigative details. They must balance transparency with maintaining the integrity of the case. Releasing too much information could compromise potential leads or encourage false confessions, a challenge seen in previous high-profile missing children investigations. The sheriff's office confirmed ongoing collaboration with forensic analysts, who continue evaluating trace evidence collected from the car and storage unit. Each piece is tested for DNA, fingerprints, or biological markers that could help determine where Melodee was during the trip or whether she came into contact with specific objects. Authorities also reviewed Ashlee's financial activity preceding the trip, looking for unusual purchases that might indicate planning. They analyzed bank statements for cash withdrawals, gas charges, and supply purchases that coincided with travel segments. Such details can provide insight into preparation and intent. Investigators interviewed friends, acquaintances, and former neighbors of Ashlee. Many described her as increasingly isolated and distrustful in recent years. While these accounts painted a picture of instability, none provided clear evidence of what happened to Melodee. However, they helped investigators understand the family's dynamic. The sheriff's office issued precise instructions to the public for submitting footage. Videos taken between October 7th and October 10th showing major highways, border crossings, rest stops, or roadside areas could hold valuable clues. Investigators highlighted that even short, seemingly insignificant clips may contain crucial frames. As tips came in, investigators prioritized leads based on proximity to the Malibu's last confirmed locations. Reports of possible sightings in Utah and Arizona were reviewed thoroughly, though none have been verified. These efforts help eliminate false paths and refine the investigation's focus. The emotional impact of the case extends throughout the community. Many residents express fear for Melodee's safety, frustration with Ashlee's silence, and concern that critical time may have been lost during the early days of the search. Public sentiment continues to push for updates and action. With the investigation expanding across multiple regions and agencies, authorities continue to stress the importance of factual reporting. Each new lead is approached with caution, and every piece of evidence is analyzed thoroughly. The wide scope of the case reflects its complexity, as investigators persist in uncovering what happened to Melodee. Legal experts observing the case emphasized that investigators must meet strict standards before arresting a parent in a missing child investigation. Even if public suspicion is overwhelming, law enforcement cannot rely on intuition or circumstantial behavior alone. They must present specific, evidence-based reasons to link a suspect to a crime, especially when a child has not been located. Probable cause requires more than unusual actions like disguises or license plate changes. Authorities need proof that a crime occurred and that the person being arrested committed it. Without this threshold, any arrest would be vulnerable to dismissal, and prosecutors risk weakening their ability to pursue future charges. CNN legal analysts explain that investigators often operate under significant public pressure, especially when a child is missing. However, their responsibility is to build a case that stands in court, not one shaped by public opinion. Every statement, witness account, and piece of evidence must be verifiable to withstand legal scrutiny. The lack of confirmed information about Melodee's welfare complicates the case. Without evidence establishing harm, law enforcement cannot assume wrongdoing. This uncertainty forces investigators to proceed meticulously reconstructing timelines, verifying digital data, and analyzing behavior patterns without drawing premature conclusions. Legal experts pointed to parallels with the early stages of the Casey Anthony case. Before Caylee Anthony's remains were found, authorities charged Casey with lesser offenses unrelated to homicide. Prosecutors avoided premature accusations to protect the integrity of the investigation, even though public suspicion was intense. Another comparison surfaced with the Lori Vallow Daybell investigation. JJ and Tyler were missing for months before authorities could gather enough evidence to issue charges. Vallow was initially arrested for desertion, not murder, as investigators needed time to piece together a complicated, multi-jurisdictional timeline similar to Melodee's case. In each of these cases, delays in charging the parent were not a sign of inaction. Instead, they signaled the need for patience as investigators traced movements, verified sightings, and searched for physical evidence. The same cautious approach is now shaping the investigation surrounding Ashlee and Melodee. Former prosecutors highlighted that even suspicious behavior like refusing to cooperate or failing to report a missing child cannot automatically lead to charges. A parent has the constitutional right to remain silent, and silence cannot be treated as a confession. These protections make building a case more complex but are essential in the legal system. Although Ashlee's silence frustrates the public, it is legally permissible. It also limits investigators' ability to establish a timeline of the final moments when Melodee was known to be with her mother. Without Ashlee's cooperation, the burden shifts entirely to physical evidence and surveillance. Law enforcement officials also reiterated that Ashlee's separate false imprisonment charge had no direct connection to Melodee's disappearance. That case relied solely on the accuser's credibility, which the judge ultimately deemed insufficient. Its dismissal does not change the status of the ongoing missing child investigation. Some members of the public expressed concern that the dismissed charge might embolden Ashlee or reduce investigative pressure. However, authorities clarified that the false imprisonment case was an entirely independent matter, and dropping it simply reflected the lack of reliable evidence, not any conclusion about Melodee's fate. Legal analysts also noted that investigators may already possess evidence that has not been shared publicly. In high-stakes cases, authorities often withhold details to prevent compromising future interviews, searches, or forensic analysis. What the public sees is only a fraction of the work being done behind the scenes. The sheriff's office confirmed that multiple search warrants remain sealed, protecting sensitive details. These warrants could contain information about electronics, storage items, or items from the rental car that may later become relevant. Sealed warrants are common when investigators believe premature disclosure may hinder the investigation. Former federal agents emphasized that the cross-state nature of the case inherently slows progress. Each state has different systems for accessing records and surveillance. Coordinating between jurisdictions requires formal requests, cooperation agreements, and detailed cross-referencing, extending the investigative timeline. The FBI's continued involvement suggests investigators are considering all potential outcomes, including scenarios in which Melodee may have been transported across state lines. Federal jurisdiction allows agents to follow leads without the constraints of local boundaries, increasing the range of possibilities they can examine. Legal experts agreed that if compelling evidence emerges, whether forensic, digital, or testimonial, charges against Ashlee could be filed swiftly. Investigators are prepared for multiple outcomes, but they must wait for clear proof connecting her actions to Melodee's disappearance. Without such evidence, any charges would be vulnerable to challenge. The legal threshold also applies if Melodee is found alive. Authorities would need to determine whether she was voluntarily concealed, transported without consent, or harmed. Each outcome carries different legal implications, ranging from child endangerment to more severe charges depending on the circumstances. Investigators remain committed to a facts-first approach. Even though Ashlee's behavior appears suspicious, they must differentiate between unusual conduct and criminal conduct. This principle guides every missing child case, especially when the final timeline remains unclear and no definitive evidence has surfaced. The public's emotional response reflects the gravity of the situation. Many question how a mother could return home without her child, remain silent, and avoid immediate arrest. Legal experts emphasize that these reactions are understandable but cannot dictate charging decisions without evidentiary support. The investigation's legal dimension underscores the critical importance of gathering solid, courtroom-ready evidence. Authorities continue to operate within these boundaries as they work to uncover what happened during Melodee's final known days on the road. Each procedural step reflects the measured approach required in cases where every detail matters. Investigators continued reviewing additional surveillance footage from the Lompoc rental agency, where Ashlee and Melodee were last seen together in California. These images, showing both wearing wigs, remain among the clearest visuals of the pair before embarking on their multi-state journey. Detectives re-examined these frames repeatedly, hoping overlooked details might reveal more about their movements or plans. Authorities also expanded outreach to businesses across Utah and Colorado, requesting interior and exterior footage from October 9th. Even small establishments such as rural cafes, independent gas stations, and roadside markets were encouraged to check their archives. Investigators stressed that a single frame of the Malibu or a silhouette resembling Melodee could offer valuable direction. Satellite imagery was reviewed for anomalies along the route, particularly in remote areas where the Malibu may have stopped. While not precise enough to identify individuals, satellite timelines can sometimes reveal unusual vehicle positioning, temporary disturbances, or isolated road pull-offs that may warrant closer ground inspection. Search teams considered desert terrain along the Utah-Arizona corridor a priority due to its limited surveillance coverage. Crews patrolled accessible regions, but vast stretches remained difficult to navigate. Deep canyons, unmarked trails, and rock formations made it challenging to conduct comprehensive searches without more specific leads. Officials continued to emphasize the unique difficulty of cases where a parent refuses to provide information. Without Ashlee's cooperation, investigators must rely entirely on indirect evidence. The absence of clear statements from her leaves large gaps in the timeline, which must be painstakingly reconstructed through independent verification. Authorities sought assistance from national trucking associations, asking long-haul drivers to check dashcam footage. Truckers often capture extended highway distances that other surveillance systems miss. Reviewing these submissions required significant time, but investigators considered them a critical component in filling the missing segments of the route. In interviews with legal analysts, journalists noted the likelihood that investigators are holding back key findings. Sensitive cases often involve confidential evidence, sealed reports, or pending forensic analyses that cannot be released publicly until verified. This secrecy, while frustrating to the public, is necessary to prevent the investigation from being compromised. Forensic labs continued analyzing fibers, trace materials, and any biological samples from the rental vehicle. These tests can take weeks or months, depending on complexity. Scientists examined whether any samples indicated prolonged stops, interior disturbances, or the presence of additional individuals during the trip. Authorities also monitored potential electronic communications sent by Ashlee during the trip. Even minor messages such as automated email logins or network pings can reveal user activity. By comparing these digital footprints with travel timestamps, investigators attempted to narrow down windows of time when significant events may have occurred. The Santa Barbara County Sheriff's Office continued urging the public to avoid speculation and misinformation. Online theories had grown increasingly widespread, prompting officials to release reminders that unverified claims could mislead the investigation or distract resources from legitimate leads. Community members remained determined to support the search. Vigils were held in Lompoc, where residents gathered to pray for Melodee's safe return. Attendees shared photos, distributed flyers, and encouraged parents to keep their communities vigilant. The emotional weight of the disappearance continued to deepen as weeks passed. The sheriff's office communicated that Melodee remains classified as a missing and endangered child. This designation ensures that federal and interstate resources continue to be deployed, including specialized analysts, child abduction response teams, and digital forensics experts. Investigators continued cross-referencing sightings reported by the public. Many tips came from travelers who believed they saw a child resembling Melodee along highways or in rest areas. Although none had been verified, each submission contributed to mapping possible routes and eliminating incorrect locations. In several states, authorities conducted ground checks at campgrounds, closed motels, and abandoned buildings. These searches aimed to identify any signs of recent activity linked to the Malibu, such as tire impressions, discarded items, or shelter use. Even inconclusive findings helped shape investigative priorities. Journalists noted that Melodee's case has reached national attention, prompting questions about child safety, parental responsibility, and the legal challenges surrounding missing child investigations. The media coverage underscores how cases like Melodee's resonate broadly, reflecting shared concern and collective urgency. Authorities confirmed they remain open to all possibilities, including the chance that Melodee is alive and being concealed. Such scenarios require investigators to examine whether shelters, acquaintances, or isolated communities might unknowingly harbor information. Each potential path must be approached carefully to avoid causing panic or false alarms. Search teams continued revisiting the Colorado-Utah border region, where Melodee was last confirmed on camera. Investigators believe something significant may have happened shortly before or after this point. The area's geography and limited surveillance make this stretch one of the most difficult segments of the route to analyze. Officials reiterated that new surveillance images of Ashlee and Melodee had been released in hopes that the public might recognize them from early October. These images, taken before the disguises changed, remain crucial for identifying potential sightings along the route that may have otherwise gone unnoticed. The investigation continued to evolve as authorities analyzed patterns in Ashlee's prior behavior. Although past conduct cannot prove wrongdoing, understanding her history helps investigators assess risk factors and possible motives. Officials carefully reviewed any known stressors, financial issues, or social isolation that might influence decision-making. Even with extensive resources, nationwide alerts, and community support, investigators acknowledge the central mystery remains unresolved. No one yet knows where Melodee is. Until new evidence emerges, whether digital, physical, or eyewitness, detectives continue working through every possibility to uncover the truth about her disappearance. In the search for Melodee Buzzard, investigators, volunteers, and entire communities across multiple states have come together with one shared goal: finding answers. Each surveillance image, each gas station video, each road camera frame, and every tip submitted has helped narrow the timeline piece by piece. Yet, even after weeks of effort, the most important question remains painfully unresolved. Where is Melodee? And what happened on that 1,000-mile road trip that ended with her mother returning home alone? Authorities continue to stress that this remains an active and evolving investigation. The case expands across California, Utah, Colorado, Kansas, Nebraska, and beyond. Detectives are still analyzing digital data, reviewing new leads, and searching for any evidence that can close the final gap in the timeline. They have emphasized that even the smallest detail from a dashcam recording to a store security clip could hold information critical to bringing this child home. The community's voice has been loud, steady, and compassionate. From vigils to flyers to online groups dedicated to sharing updates, people everywhere continue to keep Melodee's name alive. The hope is that someone, somewhere, may recognize her face, her features, or a brief moment captured during that trip. As the story continues to unfold, one thing is certain: Melodee deserves to be found. She deserves answers. And she deserves the full strength of every eye, every voice, and every resource available to bring her home. If you have any information, no matter how small, about the whereabouts of Melodee Buzzard, please contact the Santa Barbara County Sheriff's Office immediately. And if you want to follow updates, support awareness, and continue helping missing children get the attention they deserve, don't forget to subscribe to True Child Cases. Like this video, comment with your thoughts. Share this case to help keep Melodee's story alive. Every view, every share, and every voice brings us one step closer to finding the truth.